Hello, welcome to The Wandering Drew. I am Drew. On today's video, I'd like to do a short little test to prove to myself something that I've always believed is true, but I really have no evidence to really back that up except for my preconceived notions. That the Befree filter has a better flow rate and produces water, I guess, easier when filtering than the Sawyer filter. So I hope you'll join me. So today I'd like to do a brief little, I guess, practical test on filtering water, and it's going to be under ideal conditions really, of comparing the time it takes to filter a liter of water using the Befree filter and the Sawyer filter. And I'll go into them a little bit. If you're not familiar with either one of these filters, you can watch my previous videos on them. And I always carry the Befree filter for the last two and a half years. I've been using this filter, and I enjoy taking it. It's a gravity filter. There's no work involved really except getting the water and connecting the hoses. So I like it, and I'm going to use it in that configuration today. Okay, it does have an option where you can attach a flip top to the top if you wanted to, and use it much like the Sawyer Squeeze, but I always use it as a gravity filter, although I'm thinking of leaving the hose home next time I go to save weight. We'll see if that's worth it. This filter with a cap on it weighs about 50 grams, so it's pretty light. Without the cap on the end, it's 43 grams, so it's still very, very light. That is much lighter, almost half as much of the Sawyer filter with the cap on it, which comes in at 95 grams. Either way, neither one of these filters are breaking the bank in terms of cost or weight or space they take up. They're both pretty small. With the Befree filter, you must use it with some sort of container that is designed to take the Befree filter. So you have to use it with some sort of bladder. This is a 3-liter bladder. They make a 1, which is probably lighter and more convenient and obviously takes up space. But I like this also because I can use it to carry water if I need be for some great distance. So this increases my ability to carry water for dry stretches of trail, up to 3 liters. And if you really wanted to, you could put this in line and use it as a a device like almost like a Camelback would be, or a bladder on demand with a hose. But I never use it that way. I basically use it with the filter attached, and I've used it that way to carry water as well. So if you fill up this bladder and you have it full of water, you can carry water with it. And I'll put a picture in of me doing that. The only picture I think I have of me doing that on the Ocean to Lakes Trail in Florida. That is what's good about this system. And also what's bad about it, because you have multiple pieces that can fail, that can get lost, that can get punctured, and you have to carry. That adds to its weight. The beauty of the Sawyer system is everything's self-contained in here, and generally this filter with its threads that it has on there screws directly into, this is an empty 1-liter bottle, so you don't have to carry a bladder. You have the same water bottle you're carrying anyway, and you drink directly out of it. That's the easiest way to use it. So that makes it much more useful. And if I ever need to, and something happens to my bottle, next time I get into a town, a gas station, or any place I can generally buy a water bottle, I can replace my bottle. Whereas with the Befree, I have to use a bladder that is really unique to their size. So I'm ordering something that is made to take this filter. So once again, not impossible to get, but definitely I can't just stop anywhere and replenish my bladder. In doing research for this video, I read a little bit up on hollow fiber filters. And what I discovered is the reason why they're called hollow fiber filters is because there's basically a long tube in there, if you want to think of it. Numerous tubes. Each one of these strands in here is a hollow fiber It's a long strand, like a rope or a straw, or you can think of it as like spaghetti tubes, whatever you want to think of it as. And they're basically usually wrapped up in a loop and then connected on one end in some sort of resin. And the resin holds it fast so that they don't move. It also forms a barrier so that water can't get past it. So when this sits inside the reservoir and there's water all around it, the pressure from the water is pushing down on the water molecules, and they're able to go into little microscopic holes that are inside the fibers. Now, that's where you get, usually they list the micron size or the size of the holes. And the smaller the size of the holes, the better it is in that it blocks more stuff out. In this case, we're looking to keep out any sort of viruses, bacteria, cysts, things that can make you sick generally. So because the water has nowhere to go except into the fibers, once they pass through these little microscopic openings, they begin to collect inside the hollow fiber and they drip out the bottom. And as you see in the picture here, where I'll show you the end, they're open ends. So the water will then collect inside these hollow fibers and begin to drip down to the bottom of the filter and pour out the end, which is for us to use. So any water that is getting past that block of resin had to have passed through the hollow fibers. And if it's done that, then it is safe for you to drink, because none of the bad things that can make you sick, like the cysts, the viruses, bacteria, can get past there. So that's the good thing about it, so you know your filter's working. The bad thing is that we really have no way of knowing if those hollow fibers are damaged. And that's why you want to be careful with a lot of these products and using them. Why we don't use like a garden hose with excessive pressure to, or like in this one, since it's an open design, they'll tell you not to use a garden hose or even a faucet to clean it, because the pressure just of the water hitting it from a directed source like that would damage the fibers. If the fibers are damaged, you have no way of knowing it. You're just going to get water out the bottom that has not been filtered properly to protect you. That's also why we have to protect them from freezing, because there's water layers left in these hollow fibers. If that freezes, the water will expand when it freezes, much like in a soda can or a water bottle, and they'll actually break the fibers, which then will allow stuff that is unintended to get past them into the fiber, because it no longer has those guaranteed small filter sizes. The micron size has now been enlarged by the water expanding and damaging the hollow fibers, and you're not going to be protected. So that's why it's so important to treat them nice and not let them freeze, or not expose them to high pressure or things like that. One of the downsides are, because obviously water is being pushed into there, anything that's in the water is getting into these little holes and begins blocking them up. So dirt, grit, other things begin to collect on the outside, including bacteria, things like that, cysts, all begin to collect on the outside of this hollow fiber. And over time, from the water passing through, it begins to clog those narrow openings. So that's why we have to back flush it, to push those things out of the opening and allow water to be able to freely flow back into the hollow fibers. So that was a very short, but probably over the top, explanation of what hollow fibers are and how your filter basically works. The good thing is, it doesn't matter whether you understand it or not, it works. Like a car, you don't need to know how an engine works, you just put your key in and turn it, and it works. So this is much the same way. But you understand why you need to back flush it. So as long as you basically use the filter as directed, it's going to work. In the Befree, it's open, so it's easier to clean. You don't need to carry anything else. But in the Sawyer, it's all sealed, which actually keeps it protected better, keeps the dirt out, and directs the flow of water where it needs to go. So both one of these filters are fairly new. The Befree is one I've taken on a trip. I did take it on the Pinhoti, so it's not that brand new. The Sawyer is brand new and has only been used to shoot my video that I had before on how to use it. So it has maybe, a liter or two through it. So, but other than that, they're both in good shape. They've both been used recently, so they should be wet. They're not like out of the box, or they're not been sitting for a while and they're dried. So the other conditions of this test are, I'm going to use the Sawyer almost like a gravity-fed filter. I'm going to just hold it and let it drip into the bottle. I'm going to see how long that takes. I'll try and do each one twice, just so that I get more than one result. If they're very far apart, I'll go to a third one and get an average time. Not extremely scientific. The other thing I'm going to do is use the same water bottle to supply the volume to the filter. So even though I'll be using the bladder for the Befree, I will use a smart water bottle to decide how much water is going to be filtered in time. So this is a 1 liter smart water bottle. I have marked it up at the neck, where the neck forms the bottle body. And you can see I've made a black mark right here. And every time I do this test, I will refill this bottle up to that mark. Because of the Befree, I have to use the bladder. I will then transfer the water from here into the bladder and then use that. Based on the manufacturer's estimated filter rates, I'm not expecting any big differences in performance from either one of these. Sawyer usually quotes that your flow rate will vary, obviously, on the quality of the water, the altitude you're at, and things like that, which are true. But I'm expecting that we'll see pretty equal numbers, and I'm not anticipating a large variation in the time it takes to filter 1 liter. My personal impression is, though, that the Befree is faster. I think it's definitely easier, and I've always assumed the flow rate is much higher than the Sawyer Squeeze. I think the Sawyer Squeeze can have a higher flow rate than would normally happen during using it as a gravity filter, because of the pressure you're providing in the squeeze part. So that's a very important thing. So as you squeeze it, you're providing pressure, which makes the flow rate go higher. So I don't know if the flow rate, just by using it as a gravity-fed filter, is sufficient to even be in the same league with the Befree, but we'll find out. So that being said, I'm now going to go to the test. I'm going to be doing it out here. I'm going to start with the Sawyer Squeeze first, because it is easier to use. I'm just going to connect it to I'll connect it straight to the bottle, pop open the flip cap, turn it over, start a timer, and see how long it takes 1 liter to fill up this bottle, which is also a 1 liter bottle. So once all the water has gone out of the smart water bottle, time will be set. Okay, let me just set up and I'll be back. Okay, here we are back at the Wandering Drew lab, where we've got our smart water bottle hooked up to our Sawyer Squeeze. I have an empty 1 liter bottle to receive the water that's being filtered, and I have a highly sophisticated scientific timer. It's actually my Samsung timer. And we're getting ready to start our first test. Very, very simple. Just going to turn it over, and when I do, I will start the timer. One thing to note, without me squeezing, virtually no water is coming through. So after 13 seconds and no water coming through, I decided to stop, reset, and then start again. So with me squeezing, obviously the water is flowing through. I find this, without me opening up the bottle to let air pressure back in there, I cannot continue to squeeze. Okay, well, we lost some water there, but it did work, and I pretty much filtered all of it. Well, that was interesting. The problem with the Sawyer Squeeze and using it with bottles like this is you have to be able to squeeze it, so you can't use it with a hard-sided bottle. Also, because there's no return or way for air to get in here, you have a buildup of pressure here that unless you're squeezing to provide pressure, no water was flowing. So without squeezing, without doing some work, this filter would not work for me at all. Upside down, holding it, I waited 12 seconds, no water was coming out. I restarted the test, and then I used it as it's intended to basically squeeze and provide pressure. The problem is, as you can see, there's no air flowing backwards to fill up the bottle and reform it so I could squeeze again. So it took me about 2 squeezes of the bottle, and obviously I'm deforming it to do that. But in basically 1 minute, I'd filtered almost 1 liter. I had to open it back up again just to get the very last probably ounce or so of water in here. But I would say it's pretty safe to say that probably in 1 minute, you could filter 1 liter of water with this quite easily. And if I had a bottle that probably was a little bit even more flexible, where I was able to squeeze easier, you might be able to do a little faster. But I think a 1 minute to 1 liter ratio is pretty good and acceptable by almost any hiker that's out there. I'm gonna go get more water, or put the water back in here now, and we'll get ready to do this test again, just so I have an average of 2 times. So I refilled the water back into the smart water bottle and replaced what was spilled, because I did actually tip over one of the bottles. That happens sometime when you're camping as well, but for our test, obviously we're not interested in that. So I'm gonna go with the time of 109 officially to get all the water out, but I know that it was probably more like 1 minute to 104 to get the majority of the water. I was probably missing an ounce or so. So I'm gonna do that test again and see what I get. So the second test went a little better, and I'm going to go with that time, which was 57 seconds to get the whole 1 liter out. I'll chalk that up to operator experience at that point, being that I did it before. There's obviously familiarity, and I was obviously able to streamline the process a little bit. So that just goes to show you that there's a quick learning curve on this. It's not very complicated. I think if I use the flexible bags that come with the Sawyer Squeeze, I might receive a little better result because they can be folded and rolled over. If you had a flexible bag, and they do make bladders, you know, that you can screw the filter in directly, I think you'd have a much better and faster result because you're able to continue to squeeze the whole time and not have to stop to let air back in or open it up like I'm doing. I'm just doing what I would normally carry, which is the smart water bottle. And you can see how I've had to squeeze the bottle and deform it. And I think over time, you're gonna start getting cracking. So, you know, every couple of weeks or so, I'd have to recycle a bottle. If you're concerned about that, that's definitely something. But it is being reused at least multiple times, so it's better than just buying a bottle and tossing it out and getting a new one. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to test the Befree filter. And I'm going to do it in a similar fashion, but it'll be a little easier because it's going to be in the bladder. So I'm going to dump 1 liter of water using my same measure, the smart water bottle, into here, and then I'll use the hose to connect it to this bottle, and we'll see what we get for a time. What we're going to do now is we're going to test the Befree filter. I have the hose is missing here as a stopper, which is how I'm able to hold it. It doesn't leak. And instead of me holding it, I'm going to use it like I kind of would in the field. Basically, I would place this on a tree or a rock on my pack or whatever, but I would hang it up. So I decided to do the same thing. So what I do is I have this hanging here like I would out in the field so that I can test it. The next thing I'm going to do is connect my hose in here, which I'm ready to go, and start the timer. I am now going to start the clip, and we'll start filtering. And you can see The water is flowing. Definitely not as fast as the Sawyer squeeze, though. I'll give it that. I don't know if it's my filter or there's just not enough pressure here. If I squeeze the bag, obviously, I should be able to get more pressure. But I would say clearly the Sawyer squeeze is the faster filter. I've lifted up the filter so that it's taller now with higher, so there's more of a run, so there's more gravity pulling on it. And we're at 50 seconds right now, and you can see we're not even nearly as full as the Sawyer squeeze was. Okay, now we're at Well, I gotta admit, I personally am very surprised at these results because in the field, I always feel like it's filtering pretty fast. But it took almost 2 minutes and 40 seconds for me to filter 1 liter of water, where the Sawyer squeeze is clearly faster. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna reset this up and I'm gonna actually use the filter kind of like a Sawyer squeeze and squeeze it to see if the added pressure will produce a better flow rate, which I would assume it would. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to redo this test, but I'm going to be squeezing the bag like you would on the Sawyer squeeze to help with pressure to see if that increases the flow rate. Another thing I'm going to do probably is try it with the cap on. And doing it this way with the bag and the bladder, being able to squeeze it, I've obviously got positive pressure. I definitely have a much better flow rate. I'm coming up on about 20 something seconds now, almost 30. We're past 30 seconds now. And still not the same volume, I would say, as the Sawyer squeeze. So I guess I've realized that the Sawyer squeeze probably does have a faster flow rate, or the capability of producing a faster flow rate. We're coming up on 50 seconds now. Coming up on a minute. And we'll call that time at 1:07. I personally am a little surprised at these results. I really always assumed that the Befree filter was faster than the Sawyer. But I gotta say, my personal tests have revealed quite the opposite. So I was wrong. The Sawyer filter clearly is quicker and faster in terms of filtering water. That being said, the 1 or 2 advantages that I think the Befree has for me, which could be negated quite easily by some equipment, is that I can use the Befree as a gravity filter where the Sawyer really can't. It does not seem to work, for me at least. By hanging it, I did not get any water flow. Perhaps in a different bag, maybe if I could start it, it might work. But, you know, it changed my mind a little bit, where I'm thinking maybe I will bring a Sawyer filter with me on my next trip and leave the Befree at home. It was just clearly that much faster, in my opinion, in my test I did here. And these are under ideal, perfect conditions. I've got clean water. You know, I'm not rushed. I'm not out in uneven ground. It's just really a controlled environment. The only thing that I like about the Befree is obviously being able to use it as a gravity feed filter. I like the ability to portage water with it, although you can do the same thing with the Sawyer. With any bottle, you don't need anything special, really, with it. And the other thing I like is no need there's no moving parts in either one of these, so that's not really an issue. The Befree is much easier to clean. I can see the filter on the inside, as you can see in there. You can see the filter. I can clean it. It's got a much larger and open surface area. I really am surprised that it does not perform better, clearly, than the Sawyer. It's comparable, I would think, but I would almost have to say that maybe I'm not using it right, or maybe under different conditions I'd get different results. But I'm thinking to myself that the Sawyer Squeeze, at least if you're asking me now, I would have to say the Sawyer Squeeze is a quicker filter, has a higher flow rate when used. So that if I'm looking to speed up my stops and not take a long time filtering water, then I think I have to go with the Sawyer filter. And I think this may change my gear going forward. So I learned something from this test. What's your experience? Do you have any thoughts or opinions on the matter? Maybe I should try a different test or do it a different way. I'm sure I can get different results. But under the same conditions, getting a different result, unless it's something drastic with the way the bag or the filter is meant to be used, then I think you have to go with the results I got. I realize this is not really highly scientific, but I mean, there's a clearly, as I would use it, this is similar to what I would do in the field. I would fill up my bladder and filter. The good thing is, you know, with the Befree, I can start my water filtering and walk away when I have it with the hose. I've been thinking about leaving the hose home just because I don't want to carry the weight. So if I'm going to do that, in essence, I am carrying the same type of filter. And I think I'm going to have to go with the Sawyer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for probably a bladder that has a connection that fits a Sawyer filter, and I'm going to go with that. And maybe I'll buy a smaller size, something like a 1 liter bottle, which Befree does make a 1 liter one, which I think would be much easier to filter and squeeze, because generally I'm using it in a bottle at a time. I usually carry a 1 liter bottle anyway. So I'm looking to filter 1 liter at a time. So I don't know if I'm off the Befree, but I'm definitely considering the Sawyer filter. And I guess in that way, this test was important to do because it really smashed I guess a preconceived notion I had that the Befree is doing a faster and better job. In reality, it's not. And I was wrong. So that's it. Leave me your comments. What's your experience with the Sawyer and the Befree? The only thing I guess I would have to take, I'm thinking as I'm talking here, obviously with the Sawyer I would have to bring that syringe with me in order to back flush it, and probably do that every 2 to 3 days if the water's really you know, dirty or full of debris. But other than that, it might look like there's a change in gear coming for the Wandering Drew. So thanks so much for taking time out of the day. I hope this was enlightening and informative for you. I know it was for me. Gonna go rethink some things and maybe do some shopping. So that's it. I do have some news to share, which I'm not going to put in this episode, but in the future, I'm working on a trip. I didn't think I would be able to take a trip until the summer, but I've got one that, what a difference a week or two makes. I recorded my last status update, and then obviously an opportunity came along, and I may be taking a trip. So I'll bring news on that. Thank you so much for watching, taking time out of your day to join me. As always, please consider leaving a comment below. Please consider giving a thumbs up or subscribing if you like what I'm doing and you found this useful. If not, that's okay. Just come back and watch the videos. But if you feel so inclined to subscribe, please do so. Thank you so much, as usual, for taking time out of your day. Till we meet again. There you go. Sound works better when it's turned on.